So this month back in the 90s, well, if you're watching this now, the chances are it's already been a week later. But during this week, we saw one of the most impressive races of all times, on paper. That was, who was the fastest man between the best athletes at the time? Donavon Bailey or the up-and-coming Michael Johnson?
Who is the world's fastest man?
To give you a bit of context, the Johnson versus Bailey race was a 150 metre race that took part in Toronto, Canada, on the 1st of June 1997. This race was to formulate a dispute over who was actually the fastest man in sprinting.
The winner of the 100 has always been crowned the world's fastest man.
Donavon Bailey was the 100 metre champion and therefore arguably the fastest man. He would have said the fastest man of all time.
Tradition says it should be Canadian Donavon Bailey. He is the reigning world and Olympic champion at 100 meters. At last year's Olympics, he was clocked at 27 miles per hour.
And Michael Johnson was the fastest man over 200 and 400.
But American Michael Johnson is challenging tradition. The world and Olympic champion at 200 meters. Johnson obliterated the world record by such a devastating margin that traditional thinking has been rendered obsolete.
Historically, the winner of the 100 metres is claimed to be the fastest man on Earth. The 100-200 double has only been achieved 4 times prior to 1996. Michael Johnson doing an unusual at the time, 200-400 double. The raised a few questions over, was Donavon Bailey actually the fastest man on Earth? Bob Costas at the time, in utilising some really hypothetical and not so scientific maths, stated that Donavon Bailey's performance was slower relatively than Michael Johnson. It must be noted that the 100 metres has an acceleration phase and therefore is slower than the 200 metres because of the flying start, especially if you're only timing them like what Costa did through theoreticals, hypotheticals, and the fact that you time them down the home straight. Yet again with the 200 metres, as they're entering the home straight, they are going to tire out much quicker because they ran for longer. So the comments that Donavon Bailey then stated was, well, if that's the case, Johnson, meet me in the middle. Thus, with the aid of representation fees of 500,000 Canadian dollars and a $2 million prize pot, both men decided to duel it out to see who actually is the fastest man in the world. So here we are, we're going to review that particular race in detail. Start up, there's a massive roar from the crowd where they're really into this race. It's the main event and they're getting well into it. It's interesting they got a massive concrete side to the stadium there. So really, this whole tracking event seems to have really just been put on for these two guys to take the centre stage. And here they go. So both had an interestingly quick start and they're both at the same point in their race. Michael Johnson has gone off exceedingly quick, so has Donavon Bailey. Technique wise, they both popped up at the same time. Style wise from the start, they are very similar as well. Okay, so this is where Donavon Bailey had a better transition. What I did notice though is it might be because of the way the track's laid out. It seems incredibly tight. Those bends in particular. But anyway, Donavon Bailey's had the far greater transition over that 150 metres. And it's at this point that Michael Johnson has got his injury and he's flailing a bit. He's really had to pull out of this one. And it looks quite bad, the injury as well. And by the way, Donavon Bailey looks round, looks behind him to make sure he knows that Michael Johnson, he's won it, or just to make sure to see where Michael Johnson is. Fireworks, delight, he's won a fantastic $2 million. And Michael Johnson's thinking, oh, but ask, would that affect me for my Olympic trials?
And has again proven his status as the world's fastest man. The world's fastest man without any question.
I don't think it has reconfirmed that he is the fastest man. We know that Michael Johnson can run a quick 100 metres. He's probably not as quick as the natural 100 metre runners, although he does have a great repertoire. He's mainly the 200 and 400, which is what he specialises in. Could he beat some of these guys like Donavon Bailey? Probably not, no. But in this interesting gimmick of a race,
I don't think it has, yeah, because he hasn't actually finished the race.
Very disappointing for Michael Johnson. He was behind coming into the straightaway. In my judgment, he would still have been behind at the finish.
How's this disappointing? It's effectively a friendly.
It doesn't change his fastest human status at all. He had that anyway. But it does confirm his ability to run 150 metres.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's what do you expect for a 200, 400 metre runner?
We'll see a mark when they get to the 50. Bailey's up on Johnson's shoulder at this point, and at 50 is just slightly ahead.
So it's interesting as he comes around the bend there, but really totally in line with one another. But you can see where the power advantage is with Donavon. Bailey being a 100 metre sprinter when we look at it from this point onwards. He's also utilised that transition on the bend far better, but that particular bend is incredibly tight for the first 150 metres. In fact, they've elongated the actual straight, so to speak, to make it fit inside this stadium. Of course, they might have done that as well to try and maximise the speed, because it's faster on a straight than what it is on a bend to run, and therefore you get a faster time.
And now he's a full metre clear, and it's at this point that Johnson begins to ease off.
So now we are here at the proper transition, and they're upright, and Bailey's able to eke out more of that distance away from Michael Johnson, who's really trying to push it at this point and is not going to get there. And as at this point he causes himself an injury.
He senses he's got this pull. Bailey powering away, beginning perhaps to tighten a little bit in the shoulders, but well ahead and coming through the 150 metre mark, the victor. Good start by Donavon. Little wide at this point now, honing in on the inside of the lane without transgressing, of course.
Yeah, the interesting thing saying about them being a little bit wider. The modern day sprinters actually run slightly wider than what they would do at this point in time. It's because some of them are a lot stronger, it takes a lot more strength, and that way they can theoretically cut through around the bend. That's a new way of doing it. When I say wider, you're talking about an extra footstep width away from the line. Whereas Michael Johnson is running it in the 1990s to early 2000s, or generally the style that they would have run at the time, which would be hugging that curve as best as you can.
Johnson showing his good turn running ability, but he's down coming off the turn. And this is where he senses that things are wrong, begins to feel the greater effects of this muscle pull, and limps away and decides there's no point in trying to continue.
There was never any doubt in my mind that I was the fastest man on the planet, and this just proved it. I mean, they said I couldn't run a corner, but I always said this is exposing Michael Johnson in his weaknesses in his race. This is just preparation. We're going to run a couple of twos this year, and I plan on meeting him in his event.
He didn't finish.
He didn't pull up. He's a chicken. He didn't pull up at all. He's just a chicken. He's afraid to lose. I think what he should do is he should run this race over again so I can kick his ass one more time.
He's trying to sell another one to make more money.
So in the aftermath of this, the head of the IAAF wasn't particularly fond of this kind of thing. And he set around to try and prevent this from happening. And in the way we still see this today with new gimmick ideas, not being much popular in certain places like Europe and with the elites within IAAF, now known as the World Athletics, compared to the general population who may want to see this as a spectacle. Michael Johnson, leading into the World Championships that year, was injured and therefore missed the trials. Therefore, he potentially would have missed the World Athletics Championship. They changed their rules to allow for one extra person from a country if they had the world champion. Therefore, making sure that that individual still had the potential to represent their nation at the World Championship. I'm Adam McCarthy of SSA Athletics. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out our website and our Facebook pages to find out more information about the club and also training techniques and tips. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next one.